My name is Carlos. I am the country representative for China at EURAXESS, which is an EU-funded mobility promotion program. And today, together with my colleagues across Asia, I am very excited to present a, a selection of outstanding scientists working in China, Japan, and Korea, presenting their research and their personal experiences in their work.
Thank you so much. I'm Judith Erika Magyar, country representative of EURAXESS Japan, and a very warm welcome to our Asia-based audience and those of you who are in Europe. This is the very exciting and now annual celebration of female researchers on the occasion of the International Women's Day. And this time we will hear an inspirational interview and some testimonial presentations in a few minutes. And now the floor goes to my colleague in Korea, Tomasz.
Good afternoon. I'm Tomasz. I'm based in Seoul, and together with my colleagues from Beijing and Tokyo, I promote Horizon Europe, which is the biggest funding program in the world for scientists. And of course, female scientists are not only encouraged, but strongly welcome in this program. And one of the reasons of this seminar is exactly to raise awareness about the availability of the program.
And with that, we would like to start the webinar with an interview that we had the pleasure of recording with Nienke Buisman in Brussels a few days ago. As head of Unit for International Cooperation, Directorate General Research and Innovation at the European Commission, she has delivered this timely inspiration to our audience. How will the European research area become the world's most attractive destination for female scientists by 2030?
Enhancing career progression and expanding leadership opportunities for all women in research and innovation is really a key priority for the European Commission. And this is why this year we will launch the first EU action plan for women in research, innovation and startups. And our ambition is with this plan to make the EU the best place for women to work in these fields by 2030. The core objective of this plan is to advance gender equality in research and innovation. For example, by focusing on bridging the gender gap in STEM careers, increasing the representation of women in leadership roles, and supporting women entrepreneurs. And this action plan has actually been informed by stakeholder engagement to ensure that it really addresses real-world challenges.
Thank you so much.
How is DG RTD ensuring that women are not just the users, but also the leaders of the implementation of the EU's AI Act?
First of all, the focus of this year's 2026 International Day of Women and Girls in Science is on the synergy between AI, artificial intelligence, social sciences and STEM and finance. I have to say that in gender equality, the latest figures that we have from 2024 show encouraging progress. Women now represent 48% of doctoral graduates in the EU, and gender balance has been achieved by most of the member states. Yet significant disparities persist. And the AI Act, for example, plays its part by incorporating a gender perspective. For example, by embedding safeguards against discrimination to prevent and mitigate bias in AI systems, because we really need to remain vigilant. AI can create new risks for women, including a bias in recruitment and performance evaluations. And these risks will be closely monitored and addressed by the Commission as part of the AI Act implementation. In addition, the Commission is fully committed to empowering women in shaping AI. For example, in the EU Roadmap for Women's Rights, promoting the acquisition of women's digital skills and competences, including in AI, is really a key priority. But also in Horizon Europe, the European R&I program, where we prioritize projects that promote women leadership in ICT and STEM, strengthening their role across the research and innovation value chain. Let me mention an example. For example, Women Tech EU, that supports women-led deep tech startups with targeted grants of 75,000 euros, mentoring and business coaching to help scale innovation. And so we have several of these projects in Horizon Europe. Also, importantly, to finish with, the European Prize for Women Innovators, celebrates women who are leading breakthrough innovation in Europe. And recent laureates include Camille Bouguet, co-founder of Scientalab, an AI-driven platform addressing the therapeutic needs of patients with immunoinflammatory diseases.
What are the most critical compliance checks that institutions must now meet on the gender front to remain eligible for funding?
So indeed, under Horizon Europe, some categories of organizations must declare that they have a gender equality plan in place, and they must declare when applying for a grant, or at the latest when the grant is being signed, and that they comply with certain mandatory criteria, which are set out in the general annexes. And this is done via self-declaration because the Commission has adopted a trust-based approach. However, the Commission is also performing ex post projects checks on a selection of these beneficiaries participating in Horizon Europe funded projects. And the mandatory elements of these eligibility include, for example, a clear commitment of resources and expertise dedicated to the implementation of the plan, awareness raising activities for staff and decision makers, and publicly available documents.
Thank you so much. And we have reached the final question, which is what European opportunities or initiatives could you highlight for female European researchers working in Asia or other parts of the world outside of Europe?
Yeah. European researchers working in Asia and other regions outside Europe can benefit from a very broad range of EU instruments that support international mobility, career development, and gender equality in research and innovation. For example, a very known program, I think, to most of you, the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, which is the EU's flagship program for researcher mobility and training. It funds, for example, doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, and staff exchanges across sectors based on scientific excellence and a bottom-up approach. And it's open to academics and non-academic organizations. And in the MSCA actions, gender equality is a core priority. Women currently represent more than 42% of MSCA fellows, above the EU average in research. And MCA integrates gender mainstreaming. It promotes equal opportunities, work-life balance, inclusive working environments, with provisions such as, for example, family and long-term leave allowances. And it also addresses the gender pay gaps for all fellows. Beyond the famous MSCA, we have, of course, Erasmus+, International Credit Mobility, which really provides concrete exchange opportunities between EU universities and partner institutions worldwide, so including in China, in Japan, and in South Korea. And it supports teaching, training, doctoral mobility, helping researchers, including women, to maintain European networks while working abroad. And in addition, some targeted initiatives strengthen gender equality in STEM. For example, the Erasmus+ capacity building project, FAITH, which supports female leadership in STEM in China. by fostering networks, mentoring schemes, and institutional cooperation between European and Chinese universities. And then finally, more broadly, the Commission advances science diplomacy and policy dialogue through dedicated seminars, cooperation events, and Women in STEM initiatives in Asia. For example, in October 2024, took place an EU-China seminar on inclusive STEM education and women's participation, which brought together European and Chinese experts to explore strategies for closing the gender gap in STEM. And these actions strengthen professional networks and promote inclusive policies and practices.
Thank you very much. This concludes our interview with Janke Buisman and with EURAXESS China, Korea, and Japan. Thank you so much. We would like to thank Janke Buisman for her time and the dedication to supporting international cooperation in our respective countries. And now we are going to proceed with a presentation from Japan. Mei Kobayashi, a researcher at Eagles, will talk about being proactive, organizing workshops and mini symposia. Professor Mei, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present some of my ideas. So I just thought of something that might be helpful to both women and male researchers who are early on in their career. And one of the things that has really helped me was organizing technical workshops and mini symposia. So I thought maybe I could give some advice on how to go about being an organizer. So this is what my presentation is about, and I hope it's helpful to everybody. Okay, wait, stop. Oh, okay. So people might say, well, I'm a researcher. Why should I be doing organizing of conferences? And one of the things I learned early on in my career is it's a little bit like holding a dinner party. If you hold a dinner party and have guests, you're more likely to meet a lot of different people. And then you will also receive invitations from other people holding dinner parties. So it's a kind of social aspect of research. And when I thought about it, women are underrepresented in STEM, at least in Asia, particularly Japan and Korea. And it's even worse that women are underrepresented as lead organizers of technical events at major conferences and even just organizing small workshops. So I thought this might be a helpful presentation. And I would like to emphasize that even if you are a researcher, organizing will advance your scientific career and your research. For example, when you're an organizer, you will meet people that are interested in the same topics that you're interested in, and you'll learn about the latest scientific breakthroughs in a timely way. And if you decide that you would like to learn how to publish books, this is an opportunity for you to contact different publishers about the possibility of publishing a proceedings book with you as the editor. And of course, when you get these conferences announced on the website of major conferences or you publish your proceedings, you increase the visibility of your organization and your name recognition. And people will regard you as a leader in that area of research, and they will be grateful to you for your service to the academic community. And finally, as I mentioned, you will receive invitations to participate in other conferences and other workshops. So it's really a really fun way to advance your career, I think. And for me, it was a great way to meet a lot of people from all over the world and a great way to promote peace and understanding between people from all sorts of different countries, all sorts of different religions and thoughts, because you're interested in the same academic discipline. It's just a great experience. Okay, so this is my personal viewpoint, and some people may disagree. So I want to emphasize that before I propose this idea is I think for people, if it's their first or second time organizing a workshop, it's much easier if you find a really famous big conference that attracts a general area of researchers. And if you organize workshops as a satellite workshop or a meeting associated with the main conference, it makes it a lot easier. And the reasons is if you want international participation, it's really hard to get people to just come to your workshop for a international workshop. But if they're already at the main conference, maybe they just pay one extra night's hotel and they get to really participate in a small, more active workshop in their area. And it really reduces your own administrative work, and I'll get into that. And part of it is like visa support, child care services, tourist information, hotel information, the kind of thing that's really non-academic that you want to offload to someone else. And there are companies that you can hire to do that for you, but if you're associated with the main conference, you won't have to find those companies and you won't have to contract with them. So that really lowers the costs for you. So choosing a conference that you want to be associated with is really important, how you choose it. And one is I don't want to really discriminate against smaller cities, but it's nice to choose a main conference that has a lot of direct international flights because for someone outside of Tokyo, they usually have to first fly to Tokyo or take a bullet train, and then they fly to an overseas conference, right? And so then if they have another transfer after that, that could be like 24 hours in transit, and that could be kind of a mental barrier. Maybe I'll go to a different international main conference. So if you want to attract as many people as possible, I know it's a terrible thing to say, and it does discriminate against smaller cities, but try and find a conference that's being held in a really big city with a major airport. So especially the first time, because it'll help you a lot. And then some really, really important things is once you think you have two or three candidate main conferences, I would zero in on the terms and conditions um, of the main conference. Like, do they help with workshops, mini symposia? Is this really part of this whole conference atmosphere? And it's nice to choose a main conference that encourages this kind of satellite workshops and mini symposia so that people could gather in small groups before or after the main conference to do some real work together, establish some collaborative friendships. Okay. So, and also, this is a post-COVID comment, but I would tend to encourage people to look for main conferences that require people to present in person. And with the only exception that if a visa doesn't come through for a presenter, they're allowed to present online. But in general, it's expected that everybody try and attend in person. Because I think, especially with workshops and mini symposia, this kind of person-to-person interaction and, talking about the food or maybe, oh, this is a nice place to sightsee in the evening, that kind of thing establishes a really long-term solid friendship. And it's harder to establish that kind of friendship online because a slight mistake in choosing the wording might offend someone when you didn't really intend to. But if you've met the person, you know, oh, this person's kind of abrupt, or this person's has this kind of personality, and you don't have to worry so much about details of wording when you're working by email afterwards on a paper together. And then finally, maybe most importantly, if you want to get a lot of participation from young people or from people from developing nations, some academic societies provide financial support to needy participants. So you might even check for that if you still have a choice between 2 or 3 conferences, which one has this kind of funding to help people. Okay, so those are some like things to look at when you're trying to pick the conference. So now that we have that, and you suppose as an abstract concept, you've already kind of zeroed in on 1 or 2 conferences that are candidates, then I would say, especially for young people, but also for older people, I think co-organizing an event is much better than going at it alone because it helps you get perspective. And also, there's some things that it becomes exhausting, but if you have a friend, you can baton touch to them and hand the baton to them, and they could work on that for a while. When they get tired of it, they could pass the baton back to you. So, for older people who have many different networks, if you are going to organize an event, I would strongly advise you pick someone who has never had this experience or maybe only one experience, and try and find someone that doesn't look like you because they'll have a different, fresh perspective. And for a young person, I would recommend looking for a mentor. It could be your PhD thesis advisor, or better yet, ask one of the academic societies for advice on finding someone like that. Many of these societies have a mentoring program. And then you can get your partner's feedback also to make the final decision about the main conference uh, on which you'll be, for which you'll be a satellite meeting. And they may have some comments that you never even thought of when you were considering conferences. So I think it's really important to always have a different perspective when you're making big decisions about something like a workshop. But this is, again, just my personal opinion. Okay. And then this is a kind of weird thing to say, but some conferences, I was shocked to find out, actually charge an organizer for the cost of the meeting room because hotels for these big conferences charge for the meeting room. And if that's the case, unless the main conference handles it for you, you're going to have to figure out approximately how many people would attend, how much should I charge as registration fees, how do I, handle this monetary aspect. So it's kind of a pain. And at least for the first time, I would encourage picking a conference that doesn't charge you for the meeting room, or they take care of all of the fees in the very least. And then, as I mentioned before, check the conference venue and also the financial support for students and participants for developing countries. And then there's the question of what if I want to publish proceedings because all the speakers have so many exciting things to say? I'll make just a quick comment here is if it's IEEE or SIAM or something like American Math Society, they have their own publications. And so a logical thing would be to ask the academic society that's supporting the conference, hey, can I publish a proceedings through your publishers? And if it's no, a lot of people do ask Springer, which has a conference series, especially in something like computer science and mathematics. But that's maybe this is another talk next year. Maybe somebody's going to cover it in another talk this year. So I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of nitty-gritty. This is why it's good to have an experienced person as one of the organizers because they will have probably published the book before. And finally, generally, and this is not a hard, fast rule, but all speakers and schedules, there's three general types of workshops and mini symposia. And one type, all the speakers are fixed and the schedule's fixed, and you have to detail it in the proposal and logistically why those speakers were selected and what's the theme and why is it timely. And of course, at the last minute, one speaker might have a family emergency and you're allowed to switch, but it's generally expected that you will stick to the script as much as possible. Okay. And then the other extreme is some conferences require that you have to have an open call for proposals, a call for papers, and just like the main conference, some say that it has to be blind, completely blind, so that you're going to have to referee the papers with your co-organizer. If there's a lot of submissions, you might have to have a technical program committee, and you can ask colleagues or people that you know in the area to help you. So that's the other extreme.
May?
Yes.
Apologies for chiming in. You have only 2 minutes left, so
Okay.
just wanted to let you know. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. And so the final is a hybrid where you have keynote speakers early in the morning and right after lunch so people come back on time. And then you also have the call for papers. So those are the three types of formats. And some conferences let you choose between the three formats. So in the final pages here, I walk you through an example specifically of Siam, which tends to be very friendly. It tells you specifically the responsibility of the workshop organizers, and they even give you exactly the format. So you might even use this as a guideline, even in a different like AI conference. I think it's a good guideline. And then finally, it talks about instead of an open call, what if you decide to do a mini symposium with all invited speakers? How would you put that together? And then it tells you how it's judged, which is probably about the same for all of the conferences. And this kind of gives you an idea of how the general flow would work for how to organize the conference. Okay, so if you have any questions, please ask in the time that they permit, maybe later on. Okay, so thank you very much, and I hope this is helpful to somebody.
Thank you for the very practical and informative presentation. Organizing workshops and mini symposia must definitely be new for some of our attendees, and they will doubtless make good use of your advice. Should there be any questions, and here we would like our audience to submit them in the Q&A box, not in the chat. They will be answered live at the end of the webinar. And now I would like to hand the microphone to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. We are now moving to China, and representing China is Professor Maria Lucia Chevalier. She is French and Belgian, and she serves as a professor here in Beijing at the Chinese Academy of Geological Sciences. She did her education in Belgium and France, and then completed a Marie Skłodowska-Curie-funded postdoctoral fellowship in the US. And since then, since 2010, she has been working here in China. She will present her research and you will hear about some of her achievements. But in addition to academic recognitions, she has also received the China's Friendship Award from the Chinese government and the Order of Leopold from the Belgian government. Professor Chevalier, the floor is yours.
I work at the Chinese Academy of Geological Sciences, and I specialize in active tectonics. So that means I study earthquakes, mostly on the Tibetan Plateau, that you can see here on this photo, beautiful photo. So when you think about geology, you probably think about oil or mining, maybe hard hats, like on this image here, and very dusty men. But geology is also earthquakes. It's also climate changing. It's also mountain rising. It's also hiking at 5,000 meters here with a hammer in your backpack to collect very precious data. So 16 years ago, I was a young woman from Belgium who loved traveling, camping, and doing sports. And I did not imagine that one day I would discover new active faults in Tibet, like these here, that I would defend research grants in Chinese, or that I would have dinner at the Great Hall of the People with Xi Jinping. So today, for International Women's Day, I want to tell you how that happened and what it means to be a scientific woman building a life and a career in China. So since the 2008 Wenchuan earthquake, China has experienced many significant events and has taken seismic risk extremely seriously. So today, major infrastructure projects like new railways in earthquake-prone regions rely on scientific research to understand fault behavior. So my job is to understand how faults behaved in the past so we can better anticipate future earthquakes. Understanding the past is our best tool to prepare for the future. So how did I get here? So I was a very curious and active kid. I could never sit still in my high chair, you can see here, or lie down in my crib. I love nature and hiking across Europe with my parents, hence my love for traveling. I love doing gymnastics and rock climbing. I was fascinated by volcanoes and natural disasters. Then in high school, I had this amazing physics teacher who made science feel alive. So I studied physics. And for example, during my college here in Liège, with 3 friends, we won this contest to perform an experiment at the European Space Agency zero-G flight, zero gravity flight in Toulouse in France to study foam in microgravity. And our team name was the Bubble Team. So then I went on to Paris and California to pursue my master and my PhD in tectonics and geomorphology. So during my PhD, I went to Tibet several times, and then I fell in love completely with the landscape, the scientific challenges, the people, and then with China itself. Then I went on to Stanford for a postdoc funded by the Mercury FP6 at the time, long time ago. And then I got an offer from the research institute where I work now because I was collaborating with them during my PhD. So then I moved to China. And I said yes. And I didn't know that it would become my life. So I moved when I was 30 years old, and I was the only foreigner. I still am. And I was one of the few women, and I was quite young for the position, I guess. So first they called me Xiaoma, which means little Ma in Chinese. And then later on, I was called Ma Laoshi, Professor Ma. But then young colleagues or students sometimes would call me Xiaoma, and they were gently reminded that this is not the way. Yeah. And then I understood something important. I understood that in China, at least, I think mostly probably everywhere in Asia, hierarchy matters. So titles matter. And then respect is structured differently. So over the years, I learned indirect communication styles, the importance of face, that is very important in China, and when to be diplomatic rather than direct. I also learned to accept cultural gesture. So for example, when I first arrived, the students would carry my bags upstairs or in the field, but I was strong and independent, and so I resisted. But now I let them do it. So if I feel good in the field at 5,000 meters high, then I carry my own bags full of rocks. But if I don't, then I let them do it. And that is also teamwork. So cultural intelligence is a scientific skill. Leading science also means understanding people as much as data. So I consider myself very lucky that I can do fieldwork in this amazing landscapes across the Tibetan Plateau. So in just a few words, we use drones and LiDAR. We investigate fresh surface ruptures after an earthquake, like this one in 2022 in Qinghai province. You can see, the frozen soil that is being uplifted, and you can follow the cracks for 30 kilometers in this case. And I remember in this particular fieldwork that we were having dinner, which is an hour away from the earthquake, epicenter. And then suddenly we felt this aftershock. So everyone ran outside, but we, the earthquake scientists, we looked at each other and we didn't know what to do. So we really need to learn from one another, learn from the locals and not just from our peers. That is also important. So when we are in the field, we also measure offsets done by the earthquake and by the fault. And we did those surfaces to determine the past fault activity. So for example, in another project along the Sichuan-Tibet Railway Corridor, we also identified this fault called the Moxi Fault near Kangding as a major active structure with high strain accumulation. And then shortly after, in 2022, the Luding earthquake occurred right there. So studying the past really allows us to understand where strain accumulates and estimate future seismic hazard. So sometimes geology is just writing proposals, reviewing papers, but sometimes it's driving for 25 hours right after an earthquake happens to go and do our field measurements and walk along the entire surface rupture. So my first experiment when I was just starting my PhD in 2002 was in Western Tibet. It lasted for 5 weeks, and it was in this very, very remote place where there is no town or barely any town. We were driving on dirt roads or no roads, like you can see here. We had to drive on the frozen river. So you cannot go in the summer, but in the winter it's quite good. The roads were bumpy, very dusty, and we saw all this amazing wildlife, like wolves and bears and gazelles and foxes and yaks that fell into the earthquake crack. We were at very high elevation, between 4,000 and 5,000 meters, so you don't always feel good. You have altitude sickness, you have headache, you can't sleep, you want to throw up, you throw up sometimes, so it's not easy. And then we started to sleep in tents, like this one. But it's really, really cold. And then being the only woman in the expedition, I had my own tent, which I was happy about, but I was freezing. And then the other men, all the team were in their tents, nice and warm, hugging. So that was not fair. And also, regarding altitude sickness, one year I had it. I did not feel good for many days, and I wasn't drinking, eating, nor sleeping. So I had to have some IV in this garage in a small village in the middle of nowhere. So that was a bit scary, but then I felt better. So that was good. So also, when you have to go to the bathroom in the field, and there are no bathrooms, right? No toilets. Being the only woman is also sometimes you have to really think about, be creative. You have to be creative. So in a word, fieldwork does not care if you're a man or a woman. It just cares if you're prepared, if you're persistent, and if you respect, your peers and the environment and the locals. So when I moved to China, I took learning Chinese very seriously. I wanted to speak, write, and type properly. So that really helped me when I was able to defend a major national grant in Chinese in front of 19 senior male professors. And that was very, very stressful. That was the most stressful moment of my career. I prepared for weeks. And the entire team helped me refine every sentence and made me practice over and over until it was perfect and within the time limit. And then I received 19 positive votes. So over the years, I was very fortunate to receive all these major national grants, the China Friendship Award, but also European recognition from Belgium and from France. And I want to say that such awards, they come from teamwork and from international collaboration and science diplomacy. It's not just me, my own person. It's everybody is helping to make that happen. And also, awards are not the goal. they're just a byproduct of loving your work. So I love what I do. I try to do it seriously. And we build a strong team and a strong connection with the colleagues and the students here. So do not chase recognition, but instead chase meaningful work that will be rewarded. So regarding the gender balance, there's always been more boys in high school. In my high school, at least, we were only 3 females in like 30 kids in high school because I was in math and physics, you know, in STEM. And then later during university, that was a bit better. We're about 50-50. And then now at the senior, you know, professor level, we are much fewer women. But in my institute here, actually, it's actually not bad. We are about 40% female professors. But for the postdocs, it's only 25%. So hopefully that will improve with time. But there are still some professors who think that women are not as well suited for demanding fieldwork and that family will limit them. But I disagree. Like my experience says otherwise, for example, but also my female students that you can see here, for example, they graduated already. But they're often the most precise and the most organized and the most resilient. They can hike, no problem. They can carry the rocks and, you know, carry the hammer. They're pretty strong. I guess they chose geology for a reason. So another thing that I came to understand in those 15 years in China is that representation matters. So I'm often invited to speak because I'm a woman, I'm a foreigner, and I'm a scientist. So I tick all the boxes. But what matters the most everywhere is competence. So if you're competent, then you earn respect anywhere. And also team diversity. So not just from a gender aspect, a male-female ratio, but also a different cultural background or scientific background aspects is better because you ask different questions, you observe different details. So some people are better at community interaction, talking to the villagers in the field, for example, and some are better at logistics, and some are better in the lab, etc. So science really benefits from diversity. And also I noticed that, again, in China, hierarchy is very clear. So as a foreign professor with strong credentials, I am highly respected. And also female in general are very detail-oriented. I am. And I really insist on precision. And that requires a lot of patience because when the students come to see me and I make them change their figures again and again and again, and then rewrite their papers so many times. I think it's important. So I want them to learn that. So that demands a lot of, that asks for a lot of patience. So that's also what I'm trying to do with my own daughter. So she's 8 years old, and I try to show her that science is exciting. She has to be creative, and it's very meaningful. So I moved to China. I was single. I met my husband here. I built my life here. And science brought me not just a career, but also a family. However, academia always has pros and cons, like any other job, right? So for me, the most important thing, the best thing is flexibility. For example, if my kid is sick, I can just adjust my schedule. I can work from home. I can visit family. But the challenge is, well, we all know that financially, academia is not always the most rewarding path. And you have to work many evenings. And at least in China, weekends, the meetings are always during the weekend, or the conference is always during the weekend. And then you travel for the conferences and for fieldwork. So it's not a simple path, but it's a meaningful one. And so all these years in China, you can see here, I've done a few interviews or documentary, for example, after some earthquakes as well on CCTV and stuff. So China taught me collective effort, so teamwork, adaptability, respect for education. So science is international. So in my team now, I have this Indian postdoc. So we're becoming international more and more. And of course, earthquakes don't recognize borders. So collaboration matters. I'm not just a scientist, but I'm also a bridge between China and Europe in my case. And science diplomacy is real and it's important. So if I want to leave you with a few messages that you can see here, it would be that don't choose just a safe pick, just choose something interesting, something that you really love to do, that you enjoy doing. Be open to learn different languages and learn the different, adapt to the culture of your host country. And say yes to opportunities that are a bit out of the box. When my colleagues encouraged me to apply to that big grant, but I had to defend in Chinese, or like, oh, really? Oh, that's going to be so much work. But then I really put my heart into it and it worked out. So I'm very grateful that it actually pushed me. And also, accept more responsibility, even if it takes more work or you don't think you can do it, but I think you will be noticed. Like, accept to review more papers or to try to apply to this thing that you didn't think you would be able to do. Enjoy what you do, follow your curiosity, and curiosity travels far, like women in science. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Malashe, for sharing your experience and encouraging us to pursue interesting, meaningful work. Now on to our colleagues in Korea.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Especially like the earthquake, no borders. This is very close to me. And last but not least, I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Homer, Caroline, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute for Basic Science Center for Quantum Nanoscience here in Seoul at Ewha Women's University. Caroline specializes in chemical synthesis, analysis, and molecular magnets. And her research journey has evolved from forcenic science to chemical engineering to basic science, reflecting Caroline's interdisciplinary background in applied science, solid-state physics, and analytical chemistry, something absolutely different from my own experience. And Caroline, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for joining us.
So thanks again for inviting me and having this nice event. Today I want to talk a little bit about my research, but mainly about a project that's really close to my heart. We have a Women in Science group at our center in QNS, and I want to talk about this a little bit later. Just slightly, let me introduce myself. My name is Caroline. I'm originally from Germany, and I'm living in Seoul since 2022 now. I studied something for my bachelor and master that calls applied natural science, where I get all the basics for biology, mathematics, physics, and chemistry. And together with my PhD, what I actually did then in energy process engineering, I focused a lot on analytical chemistry. Now I'm here a postdoc in Seoul in the Center for Quantum Nanoscience. And this is a physics institute. And here I focus more on the method development. So you might not have heard about this. We are the IBS Center for Quantum Nanoscience. We are part of the Institute for Basic Science. It's a really huge research network. We are located at the Ewha Women's University campus in Seoul. And we are dedicated to explore properties of atoms and molecules on surfaces. We use techniques that called scanning probe microscopy, and our motto is engineering the quantum future one spin at a time. Here on the left side, you see one of our students, that's Merve. She's working on one of these instruments. And if you want to learn more about our institute, we had a really nice article in the Nature Index for South Korea. And of course, you can visit our website and follow us on social media. Now you might ask, what does a chemist or analytical chemist do in a physics institute? So we have a chemical laboratory because, as I said, we want to explore different properties in atoms and molecules. And that means also that we have to design molecules with these specific properties, and that we can do in our chemistry labs. But then we also have to think about ways how we can actually transfer our molecules from the lab onto the surface in ultra-high vacuum. It can be really challenging. And so you need, of course, some manpower for that. And then we do something that's called on-surface chemistry, where we trigger reactions directly on the surface. So for example, we have one molecule, we put them onto a surface, and then by putting other atoms or some heat, we can build really nice big structures via self-assembly. And then by using our scanning tunneling microscope, we can actually see them and explore them in detail. Over the last few months, I specialized in fullerenes, and this is a really amazing compound because you have these carbon cages. It looks a little bit like a football. You have hexagon and pentagons. Everything is made of carbon atoms, and they are really stable against oxidation and moisture, so you can handle them really easily. And then you can put something inside, like here, like other atoms or another cluster, and then you change the properties completely. And to explore these, you can imagine that you need a lot of techniques. And especially when I look at my early stages in high school, I was like, why is these ball and stick models all the time? And then actually now we can make these visible with our techniques. So we can see the bonds between, and with all this resolution, we can do so much more. We can look into detail and explore whatever is there to explore. And it's just really, really fascinating. But that's it for today, for the science part. I switch a little bit the topic, because that's something else I really want to share with you today, because I mentioned we are working at EVA Women's University. It's the first time for me that I worked with so many great female colleagues, and it's just a blast to have really more diversity in one team. Because I think this sentence here is true: the work needs science and science needs women, because we need the diversity, what we just heard. A lot of people ask me, you are at EVA campus, there are so many females, we have so many done for women, why do we need still to talk about this? And yeah, we have still to talk about this. And then I looked a little bit more into details what actually the situation is in Korea. So there was a survey that was asking for opinions on gender discrimination in society. And it was really shocking for me that over 55% say there's serious discrimination against women in the workplace. And then what makes me a little bit sad is that when you ask about how is the future looking, only 52% were saying it will stay the same. But then I looked a little bit into the STEM field. It's the field I'm working in. That's the only where I can actually say something about. When we look there, we see more female students are graduating that in STEM field. It means there are also more girls actually applying for STEM. And that makes me really hopeful, because yeah, that's just nice that they also see that this is a career path they can pursue. What makes it a little sad is that when you go then closer or higher in hierarchy in your career path, you see the gaps in between the how many men and how many women are working in this field is getting really broad. So on the highest career stage, there is a lot of a big gender gap. But also here, over the last 10 years, it actually goes a little bit closer, this gap, and that makes me really hopeful. So yes, I think we need still groups to talk about women in science. And so I'm really happy that we in our institute have this group. We are there since 2022. We are completely self-organized group inside the center. So that means we get funding, of course, and support from our center, but we can do whatever we want to fill our needs and yeah, just pursue with our goals. We are all females, so we are a group, kind of a mix from students, postdocs, senior scientists, engineers, and administrators in the core. But of course, when we do some events, we invite everyone. Of course, also our male colleagues can join. What I really love also about our center is that we are so international. We have so many bright minds from all over the world, and that makes it just better to open your mind and get some different opinions on different things. Last month, we had a little survey going on and asked our members why they actually joined these Women in Science group. And it makes me so happy to see that they are joining not only because they were curious of events and what we are doing. That's also really great. Don't get me wrong, but they wanted a group where they can speak up, where they can exchange ideas, where they can feel safe. A community. They wanted to be part of a community that makes work for women in academia better. They want to have influence on these parts. They want to learn about how to get more self-confidence. How can I grow? How can I build my networks? And this shows me that our group is really meaningful for a lot of people. And when we look to the goals of our group, we say we want to foster an inclusive, supportive, and collaborative community. This is our base core. And then from there, we go and say, okay, we do a lot for career development. We give training for different skills. We inform about grants and opportunities. We give network opportunities. So we try to have collaborations. We set up a lot of meetings and events. We also try our best to advance gender equality, so support and motivate others for the field of STEM. And then we also do something for the team building, to get a stronger team, to be more independent as a group. That was a lot of buzzwords, so I tried now a little bit to fill this with life. So for the career development, we have a series that's called Career Coffee. And there we show careers in and outside of academia. So for example, we invite female professors and experienced scientists to talk about their career and why it's nice to stay in academia. But we are also, we know that not all of us want to stay in academia. They want to explore something else. So for example, we invite scientific advisors from different embassies to talk about that. Or just recently had a patent attorney there to speak how you actually can change from science to something completely else. We provide workshops. So for example, in time management, in strategies for communication and how to build your network so that our members actually have something on their hand when they go out of the institute. Speaking of networking, we are really happy that our institute is in the center of Seoul. So we have a lot of visitors coming. And there is also the chance that we have informal meetings with young and experienced scientists. So, for example, some lunch meetings, or nowadays we get also a little bit more recognized around Seoul. So here, Valeria was invited as a speaker at Podium's discussion to talk about her science. And then we also can always participate in networking events from different organizations. For example, here there was just recently a Global Women's Summit, and it's a great way to learn from others. When it comes to advancing gender equality, we host our own Instagram channel. Please follow it, where we actually show about our group, what we are doing, but we also share about the impressive achievements other women in science have done over the whole world in different centuries. We talk about opportunities like grants, but we also say about topics that are just interesting for women all over the world. We organized panel discussions. We had the opportunity for 2 big conferences to actually have a Women in Science panel discussion where we had great female leaders there to actually talk to us, to have a discussion. And as you see here, we had a lot of people there and joining us and have a lively discussion. A lot of our male colleagues were there listening, asking questions, and it was just a great feeling. We also give sometimes talk for high school students. So we show our research. So our female colleagues, they show what they are doing and what it means to be a female researcher. And you should never underestimate how important it is to share and discuss with others. So always talk to other people. When it comes to team building, we have workshops to share our knowledge. So for example, here Pega did a chocolate workshop where we learned how to do a little pralines. We can have some workshops to exchange experiences, to have a great time. And just recently we started to have some yearly end event where we shared what we all did and over the year, and it was just a great experience to work with so many great minds. To sum it up, I want to give some strategies how you or all of us can support women in science. This is something I learned over the recent years, and also if you talk to other women networks, they always share this. So I think it's really important. And I want to start with saying you can increase visibility of your teammates, of your students, just highlighting their achievements and showing that what is possible just to inspire others. It's always easier to have some allies, of course, also some male allies, because you need people that engage you, that support you, and that will advocate also for the topics. Building your own network is a great opportunity to have supportive connections. And if you want to need some guidance, there are so many great mentorship programs. Most of them, they are free. They are from different embassies or from Chamber of Commerce. You always find something where you can have some mentorship opportunities. If you're already higher in your career stage, it's also good if you encourage institutional changes, so advocating for policies that makes it easier to achieve gender equality. And no matter in what career step you are, lead by example, demonstrate what you understand about leadership, and of course, try to be a positive role model, because there will be always someone that comes after you that needs someone to look up to, or at least needs kind of a guidance system. And with that, thank you very much again for having me and for organizing this nice event.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hommel. Thank you very much, Caroline. While we are waiting for some questions in the Q&A box, actually, I have one to you, Caroline. You mentioned male allies, and I was just wondering if in this Women in Science group, do you accept or do you engage with your colleagues, male colleagues? Are they part of the group? Can they be part of the group? If so, what's their role? Because obviously, rising awareness is among all the participants or all the members of the society. And I guess at one point we need to raise awareness in the male part of the study as well. And do you engage with them? Do you have certain male participants?
So we discussed this also just recently, what we actually want to do with our group, because this is a group decision. So everyone should feel safe. And for this time, we decided to strictly the core group is only female scientists or female women. But of course, if we have some events, we invite them so that they are not excluded. They can always learn. They can always come to these events when they are open and learn what we have to say. But we wanted to give a safe space so also everyone can speak up and not be influenced or feels influenced by a strong voice of a colleague, for example. And I think it's really important to share.
And the question is regarding motherhood. How does having a child play into your career path, especially in the context of Japan, China, and Korea? Would any of you like to take the first stab at this question?
I have no children, so I have no comment, but I've heard that picking the right husband is the key, is what everybody seems to say. Like if you decide you want to have 4 kids, it's possible if your husband is going to be an active participant. That's all I hear from my female colleagues.
Yeah, I guess I can speak for China. So in China, in academia at least, we have 6 months of maternity leave. But as academia is quite flexible, right? So in my case, like 2 weeks after I gave birth, I had this big meeting, like big international meeting in Beijing. National meeting, I guess. So I had to go and I had to present. But it's okay, because the days I work during my maternity leave, I can just take later and I'm okay with that. And of course, I still have to mentor my students, and publish papers and, correct their papers. So it never stops, like Andrea is mentioning. So you can you can say no to reviewing papers, or you don't have to write grants or something like that. But I guess it is one of the disadvantage maybe, or like the challenges of having kids during academia is that you can never have a break because otherwise you don't read the latest studies and then you're behind and then you have so much to catch up with, right? So I guess it's all about finding the time for work and life and yeah, don't stress, I guess.
I also don't
Online,
have
any
kids.
insights from
Yeah.
Korean friends, colleagues? Sorry. Oh yeah, I read your mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I also don't have kids, but at least in our institute, it's encouraged to speak up about this, and our boss is really open for that. And what I heard from all of our discussions, we always come back to this point. They always say there is no right timing. You have to do it if you want to, and then it should be. It's not a decision you do by your own. So you have your partner, and it shouldn't be like if I am the mother, I have to do everything, and my partner is then only there as a father and not doing anything. So I think that makes everything easier.
So I had two female students. So my PhD student, she was older because she had worked before. She had done another master and everything. So Chinese student, and then she was with her boyfriend, husband for years. And anyway, so she wanted a kid ASAP, and she did have the kid the last year of her PhD. So because of that, she pushed her graduation by 1 year, which is possible, right? In academia, you're more flexible. But the big challenge is that people don't want to hire her. It's difficult because they know that she will have more kids, or anyway, there's always this, like in China, I don't know, in Korea or Japan, maybe different. I'm not sure, but you're supposed to have kids quite young, and PhDs don't coincide with having kids young because you finish your 30 something or 30. So yeah, it's all about if you have the right man and you want a kid before you're 30, then it's maybe more difficult to find a job later. But
That was actually my question. If you can share, if it's okay to ask, how old was this PhD student? What kind of range? I mean,
she was not
30s, late
old.
30s?
She was not old. I mean, when you started PhD here in China, you're like, what, 20, 26 or something, and you finish at 30 or something, and she was maybe 33, right? So not old. But for China, they tend to have kids quite young, or at least it's expected. So
Can I ask if you could share some of your experiences in international academic and research mobility, crossing borders? For those of you who've come to Asia, I know that Dr. Kobayashi has studied abroad as well. Are there challenges? Are there um, points that need to be, I don't know, aspects that need to be improved?
okay, I'll go. Yeah, I think mobility is really, really important, that every scientist should at least experience living abroad, working abroad in a more like an international team in a different country that has different culture, different language. Maybe it can be challenging, but it's very rewarding. You learn so much, and not just about the work style. It's also about life, right? You work so, I mean, you learn so many skills and social skills as well. So I really recommend it. I loved all of my experiences abroad. I lived in a few countries, and yeah, I would not change that.
To add on that, especially with my colleague from Beijing, I think we can all agree, as we all are internationally experienced. It is scientifically proven that the more international your undertaking is, the better the outcome is, right? Whether it's personal life or a research undertaking or professional, when all those ideas mingle with different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages, sometimes the more complex it becomes, and at the same time, the better it become in every aspect of our lives. So I just fully agree with you on that. And I think we are just right on time without any other questions coming. And I think we can conclude, Kalis, if you agree. this webinar. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your contribution, for your time. To all of our free speakers, it's important to have this voice, to make this voice louder, and I really appreciate all of your presentations and insightful thoughts that you shared with us. Carlis, anything to add?
Just one very big thank you to all of you.
Thank you, and I hope to see you all in the future, hopefully on site, but if not online, on any other arrangement. Thank you very much to all of you.
Bye-bye.